The following is a presentation of the Belly Up Sports Media Network.
And welcome in, everybody, to another episode of the High Low Sports Podcast. We appreciate y'all for joining us this Wednesday evening as well, too. A lot going on in the last 72 hours in the sports world as well. We got some deja vu. We got some teams moving on, some teams stepping back, and a whole lot going on, and a carousel continuing to spin. It is DJ, joined as always by my co-host Kelsey. And Kelsey, it's something feels awfully familiar about today. It's not quite Groundhog Day, but you know what? There's a lot of similarities between today and what we saw at this time last year.
Yeah, it's very similar in a lot of ways, but at the same time, a lot less question. I feel like there's a lot less questionable decisions that have been made than what we've seen versus last year. I knew there was a couple. I just shook my head at last year. This year seems to be pretty like, all right, these make sense so far. Now, I mean, we say that with two big holes left to fill here, and technically three, but we kind of know where the third one is going to end up at. We're just kind of waiting for the T's to be dotted and the I's to be, crossed, if you will, or vice versa. I always mess up that saying, but yeah, you get what I'm saying. It's waiting on the final paperwork there. Should be a matter of time, but yeah, it's been fun to watch so far as we're getting ready for now the Super Bowl and the Pro Bowl games. I guess we can call them now. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, some kind of hilarity that's going to ensue. That's not going to be tackle related, and I can't wait really.
And we got the Senior Bowl and the Shrine Bowl going on right now as well, too. So NFL draft season has officially started, and we know that's one of our favorite times as well, too. But we got a whole lot to get into as well, too, as well as a final goodbye for the second week in a row. We're saying goodbye, it feels like, as well, too. But we're going to get all to that in just a second. We're going to go ahead and start things off by going into our first segment. Our first segment, of course, is known as the Tip-Off, and Tip-Off looking a little bit different this week. Brought to you by our friends over at RexMD, telehealth for men. 90% off RexMD and only pay $2 per dosage by clicking the link on your screen right now. It's rexmd.com/bellyup as well. And Kelsey, this is a new one. We're very excited to work with them as well too. Especially right now, we're looking at RexMD kind of has everything you need for telehealth for men. I mean, right now, if you need a little help in the bedroom, Valentine's Day is just around the corner, and our sponsors at RexMD are here to help you make the most of the best night of your life. Erectile dysfunction is a common medical issue that over 30 million, yes, 30 million men in the U.S. tackle every day. We've had all of those nights where we get a little too nervous and just need a little bit of help. The doctors at RexMD will evaluate you online, no office visit needed, and ship medication directly to your door before the big day. With RexMD, they're here to help provide you with real FDA-approved medications at the right price as well, too. And they do a lot more than that as well, too.
Yeah, look, it's not just ED medication we're looking at here. You're also looking at medications to help with sexual health, hair growth, pain relief, and sleep aid. All the things as men we all kind of just deal with, and we just throw it under the rug there. But look, RexMD is here to make sure that you save big and make sure that it's all FDA approved, clinically tested, and it is a U.S. licensed pharmacy. So you'll be getting FDA approved ED treatments at a 90% cheaper rate than the doctors. And yes, I'm dead serious, 90% cheaper rate. It's fast, simple, and cheap, and you can access your U.S. licensed RexMD physician anytime you need afterwards. They've already helped over 350,000 guys gain confidence quickly and conveniently, and you already mentioned there's 30 million of us out there that are dealing with these issues, and it just takes a matter of time to call them, get a hold of them, and get everything set up. So act now. Take advantage of this Valentine's deal by heading over to rexmd.com/bellyupsports. Get an exclusive deal with up to 90% off where you'll pay as low as $2 per dosage on generic Viagra instead of getting the $90+ on your actual standard Viagra. So starter packs with generic Viagra or Cialis are available for our listeners to get started. And that's rexmd.com/bellyupsports for your 90% off order. As there's links in our bio there, guys. Go check it out. We're proud to have these guys on as a sponsor now.
Absolutely as well, too. It is a pleasure to have them join us as well, too. You know what? We're going to start this topic off by talking about a certain player who's been giving a shaft to 31 different NFL teams over the last 2 decades now as well. We're going to the retirement of the GOAT, Tom Brady, once again, 365 days later from his initial inaugural retirement, announcing today that he's going to call it quits in a much less dramatic form, just posting a video on social media, recording out on the beach by some dunes, it looks like as well, too. You could probably see some people walking their dogs in the background. Very casual, very relaxed, and Sounds like this one might be official. He got to beat Adam Schefter to it. He didn't let Adam Schefter ruin his big moment this year as well too. So I think this one might just feels a little more. I'm going to wait about the mandatory 30 to 90 days before I officially put my stamp on it as well too. But this one feels a little bit more climactic, like a little more, there's a stamp on it compared to last year.
Yeah, I felt like last year's was kind of just like, wow, this doesn't feel, something about this didn't feel right. And I said it on the show. I said it before he announced his retirement, the day after he announced his retirement when he did our show. I said it then. I didn't feel right about it. I said, I claimed it was a stunt for crypto.com. I was not totally wrong. They did use it in a crypto.com commercial, but that wasn't the entire stunt. No, it just, he wanted to talk about it. But I'll say with how much he's been talking about it this year, and I said it before, it worried me going into the season how much he talked about retirement, worried me during the season how much he talked about retirement. Now, even after the season, it worried me how much he talked about it. And then that final interview with Tampa Bay reporters, he was like, basically, here's my signature letter. I'm out of here. Do I think it's the last time we'll see Tom Brady in a football jersey? I don't know. Maybe. I worry this is going to be like the T.O. scenario where he's like going to end up on the Seahawks of all teams trying to catch footballs. Like, I worry this is going to end up like that. Like, he's not fully going to retire. Like, I'll wait until his paperwork hits the tables of the commissioner and then like it's a fully announcement and then he begins his vesting period for Hall of Fame. That's what I'm really going to wait for. But yeah, I think that the natural 60 days is what's to wait for just because it's Tom Brady. I mean, you mentioned it. He's been given the shaft to 31 other coaches every week in and week out of his entire career. And it would be the ultimate shaft to just, hey, I'm going to announce my retirement. And then, oh, wait, the San Francisco 49ers want me? All right, I guess I can go back to my Baytown roots and head over to San Francisco and go play there. Like, why not play for Kyle Shanahan and that squad? And it's all set up there. All I got to do is throw dink and dunks to Christian McCaffrey and Deebo Samuel, and they just run it 68 yards. Okay, George Kittle runs through everything he touches. All right, like, I don't know if I see Tom Brady fully retired, but I will say this: if he's fully retired, good riddance and good luck, because as he learned early on last year, how retirement is not easy. Trying to figure out what to replace all that with. So, yeah, we'll have to wait and see. I don't know. But I don't know. I'm not sold yet.
I will say the one thing you mentioned too is right now I think he's sold. I think through the offseason he'll be sold. But I'm curious what happens in week 8 when Miami's looking for a quarterback after Tua gets hurt, or a team like that that's in contention that suddenly needs somebody to step in. And maybe you're like, hey, Tom, do you want to come in? You get Tom Brady. Maybe you toss Gronk out of it. You get a 2-for-1 package as well, because Gronk's been flirting with the idea of coming back all season long as well. So I think that is one thing to keep an eye on, is if somebody, a contender type team as well, to like a team with weapons and an offense that he feels, maybe even the Raiders, that they get cooking early behind Jared Stidham. I don't know. But if a team is looking for a situation like that, I could see it happening as well. Unlikely. If we went on and on about it a little bit more last year, looking back on his legendary career, the greatest resume in all of NFL history. Like, the resume speaks for itself. Whether you like him, you love him, you hate him. I knew one person in college who compared him to McDonald's. They said he wasn't really good. He was just consistently there, which kind of goes along with greatness, I guess. I thought that was a weird comparison, considering in sports being consistently there is greatness. But I digress. I digress. Some people love McDonald's too. So I'm gonna say, no matter what your thoughts on him are, it's definitely a changing of the guard feeling, even though they were kind of bad this year as well too. And we'll see what the future holds for him as well too. And I think this one's definitely more final than last year's, because he's always talked about playing to 45. Even ever since he hit 40, he was talking about the number 45. He's 45 now, so I could see it kind of holding there. We'll see. Maybe he changes his mind, goes for 50. Who knows? But if it's this, he's got $370 million in broadcasting on the table right now. So
that's not a bad deal.
Not at all. As well.
It's got to be one of those things. Like, at the end of the day, like, yeah, you have. I think this is where it might end up going, and why I worry he's like not fully invested in retirement. He might end up the Tony Romo concept, where he just goes straight from retirement to booth, because he's just like, this is the closest thing I can do without being on the field and hurting myself. So I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it all. And like, Tom, you need to take a break for yourself. Like, I'm going to say, I'm going to go out there and say it. Like, Tom, I may have not been your biggest supporter in your entire career, but I think it's time for you to take a moment and like really smell the roses for a year. Like, I don't want to see him in the booth week 1 in 2023. I don't. I really don't, because I want him to just relax. He has kids. He has, lives with his kids that he has not got a chance to really explore. Like, I want to see Tom Brady, the dad, kind of like what we see with Tiger as a dad now. Like, I want to see that with Tom Brady because he has a chance there to finally develop something that he never really took the chance to because he's such a hardcore, hard-nosed competitor. He doesn't turn the off switch off on the off season. Like, his off season starts the day after, and he's already in practicing. Like he's already practicing the next day after he loses. Like, that's the type of person Tom Brady is. So I don't know. I don't want to see him go right into the booth. Like, I know there's a lot of money on the table there, but I just don't want to see it. I really, really, really hope he takes like a whole season off and just relaxes.
Absolutely. Just definitely. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised he jumps in the booth and then at halftime he sees something like maybe a quarterback goes down. He walks out of the booth and tries to suit up as well, too. There's something goofy. Like he might be the first one to call his own game live from the huddle or something. So, you know what?
He might have his shoulder pads on underneath the suit, to be honest.
He's got them right underneath the camera angle, right outside. Like the CBS jackets they have there, right underneath. He's got the CBS shoulder pads ready to pull up over the top of it as well. So definitely agree. Whichever direction he goes, it's been for better and for worse a pleasure to watch as well, too. Both in pain and in glory as well, too. We'll see how this one holds up. The flowers are there, but we're not going to water them quite yet as well, too. So we'll wait to talk a little bit more on to make sure it's a little more final or if it's another crypto commercial as well. But next, we're going to move on to what used to be the Brady Invitational. We're going to talk about the recap of championship weekends here. The Super Bowl is now set. The current Andy Reid's taking on the former Andy Reid's as Kansas City is going to take on Kelsey's least favorite team in the NFC East, the second least favorite team in the NFC East, the Philadelphia Eagles as well. And we'll go and start with the NFC East game because we'll get the disappointment one out of the way. It never really got off the ground. Roughly four passes into the game, Brock Purdy tears his UCL, might even need Tommy John surgery. It's kind of up in the air if he'll even be able to play next year, or to start the season next year. And then Josh Johnson comes in at quarterback. John Johnson, excuse me. Or is it Josh Johnson? Either way, he comes in at quarterback.
John Johnson,
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
It was Josh Johnson because the corner or the safety is John Johnson.
There we go. Okay. That's too many J's for those names. But either way, he goes down with a concussion, not even a quarter into actually playing. And they end up going with a quarterback with one arm, and it's not even the throwing arm the rest of the way. Just a mess. So the Eagles, pretty much as you would imagine when you're going against a team with no quarterback, run this one home. Well, I'll kind of get the thoughts from you here first. Did the Eagles win impress you? Did it disappoint you? Or is it just like, well, this was bound to happen?
In a lot of ways, it's just exactly what I expected, just because like I had been waiting for the shoe to fall off on Brock Purdy for a while. And so it was no surprise that it was like fine at the time. The Eagles just take one home and ride home to victory. The big surprise is obviously the injuries. Like I'm not chalking up to, a UCL injury and then a concussion as to a good game plan by the Eagles. Like I can't do that. Like I can't give you props for injuring another player, accidental or not, in Ndamukong Suh. But you know what? It is what it is. It's part of the game, and you gotta, unfortunately, we talked about this a couple episodes ago. You can only play what's in front of you at the end of the day. So I can't like fault them. At the same time, I can't like applaud them for a good game plan. I'm just gonna say, yeah, they did their thing. They went out there and they knew when to shut it down. The exact drive in which to shut it down, much to the disdain of my betting. I needed a few more Jalen Hurts rushing yards. That's fine. But you know what? That doesn't mean anything to them. And at the end of the day, you did what you had to do to get to the Super Bowl. Sometimes it takes a little bit of luck to get there. And I mean, I'm not going to say getting a player on the other side injured, but is lucky. But like, let's be honest, it definitely takes a giant cut out of the other team when they have to go with a fourth-string quarterback who is a former USFL guy and XFL guy that's a bounce around the league type of guy. And I don't know. It's nothing the Eagles did wasn't really insane to me. Like it just really wasn't. They were, don't get me wrong, Hassan Reddick is still scary, but like you're going up against that offensive line and who at that point in time is like, I don't even know who I'm supposed to be blocking because this guy doesn't even know who he's supposed to be calling out as the Mike linebacker. We're just kind of out here just making things work if we can. That's really what it was for the Niners. And yeah, I don't know, man. It was disappointing more from the standpoint of I wish the Niners defense could have done anything really useful, but they seemed to fold it in once Brock Purdy went down. So it was just like, all right, well, this game's pretty well chalked up now. Like they did it. They did a good job there. And there's a middle stretch there where 4 drives. They did a good job of shutting it down. And then it was just, all right, run the ball, run the ball, run the ball. We're going to get out of here. So I don't know. Yeah. I'm like, I don't know. It's a dirty feeling, but at the same time, like the Eagles did what they had to do. Like you can't take anything away from them. You can't really give them a lot of credit either.
It's hard to exactly give them the giant praise like they came back, but the giant win over the second best team in the NFC. The two teams that were clearly 1A, 1B coming into a 12-game win streak, number 1 seed. Took a little bit of luster out of it, but like you said, it's like, what are you supposed to do? Donate them Gardner Minshew and a quarterback so you can beat them more directly. There's not a whole lot else you could do there. What I will say is Son Reddick made his case of why he should have been in the Defensive Player of the Year runnings. Not to take anything away from the 3 that were in there, but they should have made it a 4-person award at that point, or 4-person nomination, because my goodness, he put on a clinic. And I'm going to take my time to yell at NFL Twitter because this one blew up as soon as that play happened. You look at the play on paper, you see tight ends trying to block Hassan Reddick, and of course he's going to win that matchup. Doug, why do you do that? Kyle Shanahan, you're stupid. That's not how it works. The play design is built. What do the Shanahans do best? Outside zone, play action off the outside zone off of a bootleg. They've been doing that since 1990, before most of everybody listening was born, probably. It is what they've done going back to Mike Shanahan. Worked with Matt Ryan, Kirk Cousins, Jimmy Garoppolo, Brock Purdy, everybody in between.
John Elway.
Everybody you can think of. Part of that is your run game looks like your pass game, which involves that tight end pulling and oftentimes blocking the backside edge, because it means your right tackle gets downhill going to the outside. It's basically cut blocks leaving for a cutback for the running back. You can't see my hands and it makes no sense, but I don't have a chalkboard to point it out. In order for that to work, for lack of a better term, in sickness and in health, play action and the run game have to be married. And that part of that means they have to look exactly the same. Sometimes a tight end if the defensive end keeps his contained like Hassan Reddick did, because he is that dude, he's in a good position to just go after the quarterback. Quarterback has to try and step up and have really clean footwork. The goal is to get the edge rushing right off of there, getting way too deep, chasing the running back, and giving your quarterback the outside edge. Hassan Reddick is that good that it just happened to work out where he's in the right spot. Sometimes when it works, Kyle Shanahan's a genius. When it doesn't work, we saw what happened. The injury to, how often do you see that hit every Sunday? How often does it lead to a UCL injury? Can't think of another one, honestly, off the top of my head. Can't think of another one.
It's been a while. It's been a while since I've seen a complete UCL tear. That's for sure.
Exactly. So at the same time, while you can get on Kyle Shanahan for a lot of the things he's done, like the Super Bowl, the NFC Championship game, the other Super Bowl, this one you can't really blame him for. I mean, sometimes in those situations, if you keep your right tackle McGlinchey back to try and block him, Hassan Reddick might beat him anyway. B, all the defensive front seven is going to read the keys to that and be like, yeah, this ain't a run. We ain't falling for that. And they're going to pin their ears back anyway. So everybody who wants to be the Twitter coach, reel it in a little bit. Just reel it in just a little bit as well. Second of all, Eagles, we both kind of thought they were going to win. That wasn't too surprising. I think what was interesting to see is just how they more or less were like, all right, we don't need to throw the ball. We're not even going to try to, because we can we're going to have the ball for 40 minutes this game because they can't stay on the field. We're just going to run the ball with our 4 running backs at this point and Jalen Hurts, and we'll get out of here. And he still managed to score 31 points doing it. So the Eagles, the path to the Super Bowl wasn't quite as difficult, but they will have their hands full as they take on the AFC representative, who we'll talk about. This was the one that we were kind of talking about, like, oh my goodness, it is 50-50. Kelsey's Bengals taking on the Kansas City Chiefs. Arguably the 2 best quarterbacks in the game, definitely 2 of the top 4 or 5 going head to head. And honestly, this was a really, really good game. I thought, even though there was officiating controversy to the point where people now are trying to ask, there is a petition to do a do-over going around. Yeah, exactly. It's like, reel it in, everybody. Like, I'll let you go first, because I've been rambling for a lot now as well, too. And before I get going on this, I'll let you go and take over this game, your reactions, your thoughts, and just looking back on it.
Okay, first of all, can we just continue this conversation about, can we not ever try to go into another team, the number 1 team in the AFC, the number 1 team in your conference, and be like, hey, let's just rename your guys' stadium if you did it into Cincinnati, okay, because nobody cares about Paycor Stadium. But you're trying to rename Arrowhead, Burrowhead. How stupid do you need to be, players? I'm going to start with that. Do not add fuel to the fire of anything that this Chiefs team needed. That was the rule number 1. They broke it. Done. All right. So you already set a foot back now. All right. Now you have to try to deal with a pissed off Patty, a pissed off Travis Kelce, a pissed off defense who, by the way, pissed off Chiefs defense, not really something I want to deal with. And by the way, neither did the Cincinnati Bengals. To be blunt about it. It was a good game. Like, don't get me wrong, a 23-20 game, 270 yards with Burrow, a touchdown, and 2 picks. You got on the other side, Patty going 326 and 2 touchdowns. So you did that really work, guys? Did it really work calling it Burrowhead? No, it didn't work that way. Joe Mixon, though, I got to go to this Joe Mixon situation. What the hell? Where did he go? Where did he disappear to? 8 rushes for 19 yards.
I don't think he had a reception either. If he only had 1 reception in the red zone, that was just short of the end zone because I had Joe Mixon anytime touchdown in his tongue.
Do
you think he hits the waiver wire?
I don't know what happened. What happens with him? I don't know if he's valuable to anybody. Like, to me, like, if you can't disappear. That is 3 straight games in the playoffs. He just gone, like, to the wind.
He was okay against Buffalo last week, but every other time, the last 6
40,
weeks.
Okay, yeah, sure. Okay, 40 yards off of 12 rushes. I guess you can call okay.
He had 100 last week.
Oh, was it 100 last week? I
think maybe I'm skipping a touchdown. It was the previous 6 weeks before that he had 0 touchdowns. But yes, I agree with you. Like, it's at this point, it feels like the writing's on the wall. He might be a cap casualty at this point as well, too, because like you said, you can't disappear when Samaje Perine could come in and do 80% of what you do.
Exactly. It was just embarrassing across the board. And I mean, so you mentioned Samaje Perine, who did get a rushing touchdown, gave you 22 yards rushing on only 5 carries. Oh, and by the way, your quarterback gave you 4 rushes for 30 yards because he's running for his life. I got to just say across the board, this team, they were trying to do what they could do, but it just felt like they were really going up against it. It felt like Icarus pushing the rock up the mountain type of situation. Just, you can get close, but eventually that rock's going to melt and you're going to have to start at the bottom again. It's just unfortunately not going to work again. And you're going to try day in, day out as you're going to be pushing up that mountain, because that was just not a fun performance to watch. And, don't get me wrong. They had their opportunities there at the end, but you knew the moment that Patty gets the ball, after Chris Jones gets that epic stop, that he's like, all right, well, Patty's not going to give this one up. This is game over right here and now. I don't even need to watch the end of this. And lo and behold, 40 seconds later, you're watching Harrison Butker kick a field goal right through the uprights after, sure, maybe some questionable calls, but there's holding on every call, on every play.
One that took a touchdown off the board for Kansas City too.
Yeah, like I'm tired of hearing people be like, "Oh, you need to call every holding." No, you really don't want to see what happens. If you want to watch every holding be called, go watch a Little League Sunday game full of 7 and 8 year old Pee-wee Mighty Mites, whatever they are, and tell me how entertaining that is. I can tell you, it's miserable. It's absolutely awful. As a kid who played there and then watched them and then coached them, it is absolutely miserable to watch those kids. If
they called holding every play, a Browns versus Steelers game would take 19 hours. The amount of times TJ Watt and Myles Garrett would get held. Like, nobody actually wants that.
Yeah. Like, and sure, at the end of the day, is the foul on Patty a little soft? Yeah, but is it egregious? Like, is it obvious? Yeah. Like, you put hands on the man, and it, obviously forward momentum was created there. So you shouldn't have done that either. Like, I don't fault the hustle, but I fault the just knowledge of the situation.
You gotta pull your hands off. The push kind of made it impossible. And Patty's this is gonna be the one profanity of the show, right? Patty's an asshole when he's running the ball, because we remember what he did a couple years ago to the Titans, I think it was.
Oh,
in the playoffs, running along the sideline like he's gonna go out of bounds and suddenly makes 4 guys miss and gets a rushing touchdown. Like, he's an asshole to play against when he runs on the sideline.
Just stand still.
If you hold up, he will try and juke or run over you or pull some magic, which he's capable of. A very, very good athlete. But if you start to get close to him, he will run out of bounds and draw and hit. Like, it's almost like when Steph Curry would draw fouls while shooting threes and coming off of those screens, that sort of thing. Like, not faulting him for it, but as a defender, you're like, you're an a-hole. I don't need to deal with this, Patrick. Like, so in that case, if he doesn't, even on his high ankle sprain, if he stops running, Patty's going to gain another 6 yards. Like, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. Just maybe next time chest bump him in the back instead of actually pushing him. But At that
Next
point,
time, don't put your hands out. Like I want to see your face mask go into that pay or that arrowhead turf and take up all the turf because you didn't use your hands to stop yourself. That's what I want to see. Because if you don't put your hands out there, you're a-okay. But you know what? If you would dove your body there, if he dives like he did and just keeps his hands by his sides, he would protect one against Patty doing what he did, like Patty skipping to his loo down the sideline if he wants to continue down the sideline, or B, like the penalty there. So he protects both things and won't get a penalty called on him. And they're trying to kick a 55-yard field goal instead of a 40-yard field goal. So,
and there was still 8 seconds left as well, too. There's still time for them to get another 10 yards as well, too, as we've seen. Like, you don't need that much time. So, like, that aside penalty did not cost them the game. The officials did not cost them the game as poorly of an officiated game as it was all around. So, everyone pull back that petition. It's kind of ridiculous.
yeah, it's stupid.
Really,
Like,
the game wasn't even as close as the score, if we're being honest, too. It felt like the Chiefs had full control, and the Bengals got into it by Patty fumbling while throwing a screen, and Joe Burrow throwing into double coverage on 4th and 15, and Jamar Chase being Jamar Chase. And then throwing the double coverage and T. Higgins being T. Higgins. Like, there's a few of those, like, 4th down, Madden, you know what? He out there somewhere, and it just happened to work. Like, that's
yeah.
If you take away 2 plays, suddenly the game, or if you add 1 play to Kansas City, it's like 28-17. So, obviously,
yeah, I mean,
great
like
job.
there's a couple drops from Kansas City that if it goes the other way, this game is a washout. Like this game is down. You're looking at 35-20 maybe, or maybe even 40+20. Like it could have been a washout one way or the other. So yeah, it wouldn't have been the Chiefs just to be within 3 at the end of this one. Count your lucky blessings there. But yeah, to say that you want a replay, look, just get out of here with that. Get out. No.
I will say I feel bad because on 4th and 4, when I was the only one who picked the Chiefs, I mentioned this was the first time Kadarius Toney and Mecole Hardman would both be suited up in the same game. And sure enough, they both get hurt in the same game as well, too. Like they've been staggering their injuries since Kadarius Toney came over. This time they just both went out. So it was Marquez Valdez-Scantling and some dude who has more tackles and receptions in his career as their 2 receivers. And please, Travis Kelce be out there somewhere. So honestly, it was I'm not going to say a Herculean performance by the Chiefs, but in one of their better performances in recent years, which is saying a lot with what they've done. Bengals, they'll be just fine. They'll be right back into it. Mayors don't get involved in sporting events. When you try and ask for a paternity test, you get Patrick Mahomes going off for 300 passing yards. So Cincinnati's mayor, go back to Kentucky and probably keep that one to yourself. Kansas City, but you know what? We've taken a lot of time, so we're going to move forward now, wrapping up the tip-off. We got the Super Bowl matchup. Chiefs taking on the Eagles. Give me one storyline you're looking for. We're not going to give our predictions now because A, it's 2 weeks away. B, we got some fun planned for next week's show leading into the Super Bowl. And C, we got a few Super Bowl shows to go on to make our predictions. So give me the one storyline or right now you're looking into, whether it's a matchup, something funny, Andy Reid and his cheeseburgers, whatever it is.
As much as I'd love to do Andy Reid and his family and his cheeseburgers, I got to go with the Kelce Bowl. It's the Kelce Bowl. I am Kelce. It is the Kelce Bowl. The Kelce Bowl is the storyline here. I am the storyline, dang it. No, I'm just kidding. Obviously, we're talking Jason and Travis, brothers here going against each other for the first time for a Super Bowl. So very interested to see how that goes. They talked about it, obviously, on their podcast as well. And it's a very fun podcast to listen to. Cannot wait to see really what leads into the next couple of weeks here. But yeah, to me, I think that's going to be like, obviously they don't match up against each other ever, but I just, for the life of me, it's just very curious. And if you listen to what Jason says, like, Travis, you're already a Hall of Famer. Let me have the Super Bowl. Travis, on the other hand, is like, look, I need to know the Super Bowl to get a Hall of Fame guarantee. So, you know what? Take that with us. I don't think Jason or Travis needs to worry. I think they're both Hall of Famers. But hey, the Kelce Bowl is going to be something to watch for. So we already know the best dress is going to Travis Kelce, though. Sorry, Jason.
And honestly, too, if Jason wins the Super Bowl, I wouldn't be surprised if he decides to call it a career on that point as well, too. That'd be something to keep an eye out for. Mine, I'll go with is I'm going to stick with Jason Kelce. I'm going to say Jason Kelce in that interior taking on Chris Jones, and angry Chris Jones as well, too, who's had the best season of his career. That's going to be whoever wins that matchup. I think is going to really dictate the game. If Chris Jones is blowing up those zone reads from the inside, is pressuring the pocket and forcing Jalen Hurts to run, which, fun fact, Jalen Hurts breaking the pocket to throw the ball, not very good at all this year. Like, his passer rating cuts more than in half when he has to throw outside the pocket, which who'd have thought, right? Considering he's known such a mobile guy. It's like he's either standing in the pocket throwing dimes or he's running for 30 yards. There's no running extending plays to throw the ball with for high success this year. But either Chris Jones blowing it up or they control him and Jalen Hurts is gonna feast like he's back at Oklahoma or Alabama. So that's what I'm going to keep an eye on as well too. But we look forward to. We got a lot of fun Super Bowl stuff coming up in the next week, so we look forward to seeing you next week. We'll talk more about those as they get more set in stone as well. Definitely want to join us for the show next week. We might have some fun planned for that one as well. But that's going to do it for the tip off, and that's going to now take us into Kelsey's second favorite part of every show, and that is the main event. The main event, as you well know by now, but we're going to go and refresh your memory anyways, brought to you by our good friends over at Manscaped. Use code HILOSports, get yourself 20% off any purchase as well as free shipping. They even got a new beard trimmer as well too, so you can keep yourself lined up in the face. It's not just for the balls. They have a little bit of everything for you. Crop preserver, keep yourself smelling fresh. Valentine's Day is just around the corner, as we mentioned earlier as well. If everything is functioning down there, you want to make sure it's looking great as well too. So between RexMD and Manscaped, you can go ahead, keep everything nice and tidy for that special someone in your life. You know, they're going to show up and show out for them. You should do the same as well too. Don't go in there looking like Jason Momoa from Khal Drogo in Game of Thrones. You need to look your best as well too. And Kelsey, as far as there's a little bit of something for everybody as well. We mentioned the beard trimmer as well. You can keep yourself nice and lined up here as well. They got something for downstairs. They got something for the chest. They got deodorant. They got body wash. They got shampoo, and they got crop preserver as well too.
Yeah, look, I'm glad you said the crop preserver, man. I got to talk about it. We just talked about the Kelsey Bowl. Two big guys getting at it down there, and look, as a big guy, sweat a lot. Got to keep yourself smelling nice. And we've all dealt with the baby powder. Get rid of the baby powder. Pick up crop preserver. All it takes, just a little spritz downstairs. As soon as you get out of the shower, you are good to go, and you're smelling nice for multiple hours afterwards. So definitely go check out the crop preserver. So that is at Manscaped. Use the code HILOSports at checkout for 20% off your order. If you guys haven't already gone and done so, get yourself something for Valentine's Day, or ladies, if you're listening, get yourself something get your boyfriend or significant other or whatever, somebody for something for, Valentine's Day. Got to make them smell nice. Got to make them look nice. So we're not going to figure it out ourselves, unfortunately. So go check out manscaped.com. Use code HILOSports at checkout for 20% off.
All right, well, we've covered everything from downstairs and everything between. So now we're going to stick in the NFL. We're going to stay on the gridiron. We're going to take a look at around and around the coaching carousel goes, and it looks like it's starting to finally slow down a little bit as we have some head coaching vacancies starting to fill slowly. Recapping that, we got Frank Reich, the former Colts head coach, the first domino to fall. He is heading back home, if you will, to sweet Carolina, where he was actually the first quarterback in team history, if I'm not mistaken, as well, too. You also got DeMeco Ryans heading home as well, too. He is heading to Houston to be the new head coach there. A great hire for them as well, bringing back one of their own after a fantastic defensive coordinating season. And on the one that's shocking, but not shocking at the same time because it makes way too much sense. It's how we got here, though, is Sean Payton is heading to Denver to try and fix the Russell Wilson experiment and see if he could turn the Broncos around as well. The former Super Bowl quarterback and the former Super Bowl coach linking up at Mile High to see if they can kind of flip the script after what happened last year. We're going to start with that one because the Broncos have now traded 3 first-round picks and 3 second-round picks to acquire Russell Wilson and Sean Payton. Is it worth it? That is the question, Kelsey. I'm going to open that one up to you. Is that worth it? Do you think this was the right move? Because I know when we did our coaching matchmaker, this is the one you picked. Our concerns, though, was how do you get him? And, well, it turns out it does not matter. They will find a way.
Hey, they found a way. Did they ever? Look, is it worth it? Let's start with that question. That answer won't be given until week 18 in 2023 of this 2023-2024 season. So this next season. So I can't give you a yes or no. Is it worth it yet? Do I look at it and think it's worth it? Yes. I do think that if you needed to get the only coach out there that could handle a Russell Wilson right now was Sean Payton. I think that is just my opinion. That is obviously what the Broncos thought as well, because they shunned their other 6 rumored guys that they were rumored before Sean Payton to just go straight after Sean Payton at this point in time. And I'm actually kind of surprised. I said that one more as they don't even have him lined up as a potential coaching hire type of guy. Like, they don't even have him lined up for an interview. Like, I'm not sure this is really going to happen. But I just threw it out there just as like, don't be surprised, because he's the only one I think that has the mind that Russell Wilson would respect enough. And I do think that's what it comes down to. I think if you look at the front office there, Elway and everybody, they know what Sean Payton has done, and they turned Drew Brees, who is, if we're honest about Drew Brees in his career, if you took away Sean Payton from his career, I feel like we'd all be saying average about a lot of what Drew Brees was able to put on the field. But when you add Sean Payton into his career, you have that entire resurgence post shoulder work with what they did in New Orleans, and wow, Hall of Famer is what you get with Drew Brees. You get
Super
Breezes,
Bowl MVP.
Super Bowl MVP. Up until recently, number 1 yards per season. I look at this and I think this is Russell Wilson's opportunity to be the guy that he thinks he is. This is his opportunity to be that huge number 1 quarterback that everybody, believed, because they let him talk himself, let Russell talk them into believing this.
Mr. Unlimited.
I think this is this opportunity to be that guy, but I think he's going to be shocked a little bit at the first couple moments with Sean Payton. I think Sean Payton's there's a little old school to Sean Payton. I think he's not, I don't think he's ready. Like, it's going to be like harken back to some of those old baseball coaches at NC State that Russell Wilson was dealing with. That just like, oh, okay, like you're whooping me into shape type of situation. And I think we're going to get a Russell Wilson that's ready and focused to handle that. So again, I think it's worth it. Yeah, on paper, yes, but honestly, we won't get a full answer until week 18. After week 18 of this season, like, I won't get a full answer for you, but I'm going to say yes. I think this is the perfect opportunity for both guys to kind of Sean Payton to continue his career, and then Russell to kind of figure it out after this awful season. So
I will say too, I'm kind of curious because Sean Payton right now back in it is a top 5 coach in the game from last we saw right now. I mean, there's only a handful of coaches that right now in the NFL that have even won a Super Bowl, let alone, and he has done that plus all the winning seasons. So you can make a case he's already top 5 when he's back into it as well too. I will say they don't have any draft picks now. So what you see is what you get basically. They don't have a lot of cap room if I'm not mistaken either. I don't know how much flexibility they have. So they might have to make some moves. Maybe some of these players might have to go. We saw Bradley Chubb get traded last year to get some of those picks back, and well, now those picks are gone. They were in and out pretty quickly. Maybe Jerry Jeudy's on the market since they have to pay him soon. Maybe that's something they could try and flip as well. I don't know. He came on really strong last year, but if you can get like a second round pick, I don't know what it basically feels like Sean Payton, you don't have a lot of leeway here. In New Orleans, he was allowed to, for lack of a better terms, help build that team the way he wanted, and he's able to adjust the team with what they had. We saw in like the high flying 5,000 yards a season with Drew Brees for 4 straight years, but there's a few 8-8 seasons in there that was just kind of rough. So then I think it was 2017, he flips it on his head, drafts a bunch of defense, brings in Alvin Kamara, makes it a run first Drew Brees ball control centric team with a good defense, getting back into the playoffs, get rolling again. He's just not going to have a lot of leeway. He's going to have to basically take the roster you have that has a really good defense, but a potentially leaving defensive coordinator, depending on if he takes one of these final 2 spots, and an offense that was in shambles last year that you're hoping you can recuperate, and you have to hope Russell Wilson, I don't want to say buys into the system, but fits the system. Hopefully you two are able to at least meet in the middle somewhere. So there's a lot of, as you mentioned too, where would Drew Brees be without Sean Payton? Where would Sean Payton be without Drew Brees at the same time?
We're going to get an answer on that question too.
Exactly. So. We're going to find out real quick. If he could flip the Russell Wilson train around, that's great. Both undersized quarterbacks, but 2 very, very different quarterbacks at the same time. So that one was. I do want
to answer your cap space conversation. The Broncos currently have 62 players under contract, so 9.2 million is what they figure their salary cap, and that's only the top 51 contracts are applying against the because that's their off season, so only top 51 contracts apply. But that's not including any sort of restructure they might do with like some of the guys you mentioned, or Graham Glasgow, Ronald Darby, Chase Edmonds, Mike Purcell type of a situation as well. So we'll have to wait and see. They do have a little. Now, this is not the cap gymnastics that the Saints had to pull with the $0 contract and Taysom Hill type of situation. But yeah, it's going to be some pretty good gymnastics nonetheless.
And the cap, if I'm not mistaken, is going up by about 20 million next year, so that will help as well too. We'll see what they can do. I think they said
that's the most as of 7 hours ago update. Yeah. So should include that 20 million.
Yeah, so they got their work cut out for them. We'll leave it that way as well too. We're gonna find out what they have, and you're still in a division with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. You still got Justin Herbert, and we're gonna talk more about that Chargers team a little bit later. The Raiders, not too concerning right now. We'll just leave it as we'll call a spade, not too concerning right now. So we'll see if they can get the Mr. Unlimited Russ or the Mr. Extremely Limited that we saw last week. But we got some other coaching hires to take a look at. Is the Carolina Panthers bringing in Frank Reich, and I feel bad. This should have been Steve Wilkes, but I can't really argue. Frank Reich's a really good coach, a winning record coach with the absolute mess travesty that was Indianapolis the last 2 years. And he still has a winning record so far. Really good fit. You get to kind of build a team the way you want. A top 10 pick to go get a quarterback you like and some really good talent. Should have been Wilkes, but this is not a bad, for lack of better terms, other option, if that makes sense. That's how I look at this one.
Yeah, this one I don't really hate. I did think if they were going to go somewhere other than Steve Wilkes, I thought it was going to be Raheem Morris personally. Kind of surprised he didn't get the job, to be truthful. But I get the idea of going with Frank Reich. And again, this is like DeMeco Ryans, a guy returning home, back to the Panthers type of situation. It's not like he had a bad time in Indianapolis there. It's just, look, you couldn't get the quarterback situation figured out because your franchise quarterback got killed and like he retired right there before the season. And now you're like scrambling after that and doing what you had to do. And frankly, I'll be honest, some lesser coaches probably don't even get that far to make it through to Matt Ryan, let alone Sam Ehlinger in the season. And, beyond that. So like, I give Frank Reich credit that I think he's a better coach than a lot of people are going to give him credit for to begin with. And, I'm interested to see what he's going to do, and especially that young defense in Carolina, and honestly, an offense that's not too terrible. Like you look at that offense and figure some things out there at quarterback, and that offense is going to be pretty fun.
Young offensive line, DJ Moore at receiver, and Terrence Marshall as well. So there's something to work with there. I think they got to get the captain of the ship right. They got to find that quarterback spot. Whether they trade up in the draft, pull somebody out of free agency, steal Trey Lance from the Niners. I don't know. We'll see. Like there's some options out there. I'm curious to see what they'll put together there as well. And the last one is we mentioned DeMeco Ryans going to the Texans. For me, it's pretty quick and simple. A perfect fit, young defense, lots of picks, so he gets to build the team I want. And my only hope is the last two Texans coaches have been one and dones. I really hope they don't try and do this with DeMeco Ryans. I don't think they will. This one feels like the light at the end of the tunnel. Like the mess is finally over. The Texans now have a chance. And I'm really curious because they got some young studs on that defense. And with all these picks they have, they're going to bring in some more. They're going to try and make a very nasty defense there in Houston. So I'm looking forward to this fit.
Yeah, I think this is the one that you look at and it was just made in heaven, written in the stars, if you will, brought down. And it's just like, please don't mess this up, Houston, like you had in the past. And obviously new GM, new owner and situation of the last couple years. They're just like, all right, let's figure this out. Like, let's settle on somebody young and ready to go for our team. And as much as I hate the idea of them using, the last two coaches as kind of stalwart coaches to get to this point, so be it. It's part of the game, part of the NFL. 6-year contract out the gate for DeMeco Ryans. All these picks. You're given 6 years, so you really got to imagine you're given 3 in the NFL. So you have 3 years to take all these picks and turn it into something competitive in one of the least competitive divisions in the NFL.
Second worst.
and let's be honest. You already beat both two teams once a year. Now all you got to do is beat the third team once a year. And you're already doing better than you were. And now you just have to win 2 more games and you're good to go. I don't think the Texans are too far away. I think just really you look at that offensive line. Offensively, a few more weapons out there. But defensively, I don't want to mess with that team. DeMeco Ryans it can have a field day with that team as it is now. Throw a couple offensive or defensive linemen in there and you're okay. Good luck. Yeah, I think this is the perfect situation for him, and I think if we're going to see DeMeco Ryans succeed as a head coach, we're going to see him take that full 3 years, and it wouldn't be surprised in 2 of those 3 years that he gets them in the playoffs as a wild card team, and that third year competing for the AFC South, and then beyond that, I don't know if he'd stay in Houston beyond that. To be fair, but I do think he has that 6-year contract, and it might be an opportunity for them to finally have like that long-term head coach that they haven't had for quite some time.
It's definitely a nice vote of confidence as well, too. And I think they know it's going to take a little bit of restructuring, rebuilding, reloading as well, too. It's nice to see that he's given that time. Since a lot of coaches now, you get really a year. In that second year, we expect improvement. Third year, you better be you better be done basically. Like you better be cooked.
Third year, you better be there. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So next, we're going to go to the more quiet of the two remaining ones. We're going to take a look at the Cardinals right now. Who the Cardinals, a little bit quiet of the search as well, too. They have had some interviews. Brian Flores right now actually remains the favorite among many others. Looks like they're trying to talk with Lou Amarillo, the Bengals defensive coordinator as well, to talk with a few other ones. And for this one, taking a look at the Cardinals, they really can't go wrong, in my opinion, as well, too. Like they screwed up the last one pretty badly, bringing in Kingsbury. I thought it had some moments, but you could kind of see it was not a great fit. I'll let you kind of go first on this one. Cardinals, who would you like to see maybe, let's say they hypothetically fill this role within the next 10 before our next show. Who would you like to see get announced?
Well, so they announced their new GM, and that's Monty Osen from the Tennessee Titans, former Titans executive. So with that announcement, and you look at what's available, like who their coaches are, who the coaching conversations they've had. Obviously, both Bengals coordinators, offensive and defensive coordinators, Callahan and Anarumo are out there. Broncos DC, Evero is out there. You mentioned him. Brian Flores still kind of remains that favorite. Aaron Glenn is still out there conversationally. Vance Joseph, obviously being the guy that is from the Cardinals. Dan Quinn, who has announced he is actually staying with the Cardinals, or staying with the Cowboys, so he's out. Mike Kafka, the Giants offensive coordinator. Those are the guys that are I'm looking at their list right now. If I'm going with anybody and I'm going with like a relationship type of guy, if I'm looking to try to build something, I'm going with Brian Flores. I don't think there's a question in my mind what's available out there. I think it's Brian Flores based off of what you have on the list. Now, the only other guy I'd reach out to that you don't have on the list would be Raheem Morris. But again, that's because I like Raheem Morris a lot. I think he's a high-quality coach. I think there's a great opportunity for him to get back in the head coaching roles. But again, I get it. You know what? You want to try to avoid retreading if you can in certain situations. And Brian Flores technically isn't a retread in the way that things shook down with the NFL and the Dolphins. So I don't really consider that a retread. But yeah, I'm gonna go Brian Flores as the guy that I think ends up in the Cardinals head coaching seat. And I think there's a great opportunity there for Brian Flores. I said it back when he was taking over the Dolphins. I think he's a great coach. I think he's a great defensive mind. That team needs a great defensive mind because they have all the defensive pieces. Obviously, losing JJ Watt to retirement now, but yeah, like to go across the board there, Buda Baker, everybody, on that that defensive line, the secondary linebacking core.
And possibly Will Anderson or Jalen Carter coming in with that, whatever they do with that 3-pick too. Like, Lord have mercy.
Exactly. So, I mean, do what you will. If you're the Cardinals, you already have an offense as well. But yeah, I do think if I'm them, I'm going Brian Flores. I don't second guess that. If I have the opportunity to, if I'm Osen for it, I'm like, bring him here. Like, sit down. Here's blank check. Thank you. Sign.
We are in full agreement. For the sake of just parity, I will also say if I had to pick somebody besides Flores, we'll say he doesn't want to go there just for some reason. There's like a conflict, like him and the GM just come to fisticuffs. For whatever reason, he's just off the table. I think my next option, I really, really like bringing in Brian Callahan from Cincinnati if I had to pick a second option. He's a polar opposite of Brian Flores. I think with him, the track record he has offensively as well, too, coaching with Peyton Manning, we see with Joe Burrow. Kyler Murray had a bit of a rough year last year as well, too. We've seen a weird trend where it starts hot and then it tapers off at the end. Starts hot, tapers off the end. 7-2, finishes 9-7. Is that part more Cliff Kingsbury than Kyler? We don't know, but we've seen them both in tandem go up and go down. You gave Kyler Murray $160 million guaranteed. You want to get the most you can out of him possibly as well, too. You have some weapons. DeAndre Hopkins might be on the move, but you have Hollywood Brown. So that's another option is you won't get Kyler Murray the first year, so you'll have to work around that. Or at least for the first half of this upcoming year, we imagine. So that's the other option. But I'm agree with you. Flores is my first choice. If that doesn't work, I like Callahan as my option B, if you will. So I think they have plenty of options. They got a lot of work to do there, but at least you have a quarterback and a top 3 pick. So you at least have some working ground for Arizona. Now we're going to move to the biggest mess of them all. The one that is still not even fully come close to taking care of. They have, I think it was 13 first-round interviews, and 8 people so far now are set to conduct second-round interviews, including a couple going on this week, as Brian Callahan will be interviewing with the Colts, as well as Steve Steichen from the Eagles as well, making a total of 8. There's a long list of people that are still in the running, let alone getting close. We probably won't even get an answer until after our next show. I wouldn't be surprised if we get it literally the day after we record our next show, probably, because that's the way it goes. But there's a long list. Some of the highlight names, I'm not going to go over all of them, but Raheem Morris, Callahan, Steichen. There's also, Aaron Glenn getting a second-round interview, the Lions defensive coordinator. You got Varro from Denver as well. Rick Bisacki, the former Raiders interim head coach, who is also the Packers special teams coordinator, and a few others as well too. Jeff Saturday, of course, is on that list, but we're on as far as there's a long list of actual options, and Jeff Saturday on there as well too. So, Kelsey, we're gonna let you open this one on as well too. Actually, no, I'm gonna take this one first. I changed my mind. I'm gonna take this one.
Go ahead.
The best option is Raheem Morris because he's the former head coach, one with Josh Freeman at quarterback. He's a Super Bowl winning defensive coordinator who has offensive coaching experience as a former receiver coach. So if you want to, you're bringing in a quarterback for Indianapolis because that room is a travesty right now. You're probably bringing in one in the draft. He can work with that. And his coaching staff is going to, he's very well respected. So whoever he brings in offense, he's going to bring in an offensive coordinator too and a defensive coordinator. He's going to bring in a really good staff. He has that former head coach experience as well as he's just the clear man for the job, it feels like. And he had like a 14-hour second-round interview is what it's if I read correctly. So he spent an entire workday and some overtime change with him. So him and Chris Ballard feel like a match made in heaven as well too. The way the way their minds work, that feels like the best option. Next one, just like the Cardinals, Brian Callahan should be right there. He used to work with Peyton Manning, so that could be a selling point. Be like, Ursay, I worked with Peyton Manning. We know how much you have a hard on for those days. We buy the fact that you hired Jeff Saturday. Let's make it happen. There's your ticket there. I feel like those are the two clear options with Raheem Morris. The fact that it's not signed, sealed, and delivered is kind of weird, honestly. I feel like that is the clear option. Eric Bieniemy didn't get a second-round interview, but I think he should. I think the Super Bowl run might just be impeding that because former running back, I think he has a lot more to do with the run game in Kansas City, considering they always find a way to run the ball with literally anybody back there. You give him Jonathan Taylor and a young quarterback, they will find a way to make it work. So I probably have the same pick as you, but I'm going Raheem Morris. That should be A+. Get it done before our next show. That should be the safe one. Get him to get that offseason work started with him. I feel like that's the clear cut. If I'm in charge, that blank check is sent, and I will give him the date for his introductory press conference. We are not taking no for an answer. We will see you there, and you can sign your blank check right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think when I look at the coaching interviews with the Colts, it just makes me laugh in a lot of ways because I think they really got kind of let down with Ben Johnson obviously coming out saying, I'm staying with the Lions. And then probably their backup, in my opinion, was Dan Quinn, and him coming out and saying he's staying with the Cowboys was probably a shot in the heart there. And they were just like, oh, great, what do we do here? And what scares me, and what really scares me, and should scare any Colts fan out there, is the fact that their number one person that they already finished their second interview with after immediately scheduling it was Jeff Saturday. That should terrify absolutely anybody. That was the first one that was scheduled and completed. Usually that's usually your favorite offer. Or
from what they said too, a few of them got rescheduled because of the winter storm, and since he's local,
okay.
That was easy. There were a few that were scheduled before him, but that's what I saw too. And I was like, really, that's your first one? But then I saw like apparently the winter storms had to cancel a few of them. So.
Let's hope that's the case because I don't like the idea of just Saturday returning. I will just stand by that.
Start as an offensive line coach, work your way up there. You don't get to go from ESPN to head coach.
No, not at all. I don't mind. I obviously love Raheem Morris. I think he'd be a great coach. I don't think he's the coach here though. I think there's a different route to go here. I think you probably want to go like an Aaron Glenn, only because I don't think Raheem Morris's defensive mind works with what's already on the team defensively for the Colts. I think with Aaron Glenn, he can kind of take this Colts team and kind of mold it into what they've done in Detroit and build it in a much more similar way where like you can build around, Shaquille Leonard in the middle there. You can build around whoever plays middle linebacker or outside linebacker in a way that gets him from being the targeted player every play. Like he's not going to have to fight off 3 blocks every play, which is what they've done in Detroit with Malcolm Rodriguez. They were able to find a way to get him to not have to fight off 2-3 blocks every single play and able to make, point of tackle meetups in the line of scrimmage. So that way, you're limiting to 1-2 yards at a time. So I think Aaron Glenn fits more systematically with what Indianapolis has. I don't hate the Raheem Morris pick. If you pick Raheem Morris, by all means, sign him up, get him in the building yesterday. But I do think that the opportunity there is probably going to pass them by because the Colts are very slow on these decisions. And I think that's what worries me. And I think that they're going to end up with like an Aaron Glenn. Rick Bisaccia, probably my second most likely, only because I don't think of him as a coach for X's and O's. I think of him as a head coach who would assign quality coordinators, if that makes sense. Like a guy that won't have his own ego in the way of the offense and defensive situations. Like he's a guy that really is a special teams guy at the end of the day.
Very John Harbaugh-esque almost.
Yeah, like I love that from a head coach. I don't necessarily need my head coach to be offensive or defensive coordinator. I kind of want them to oversee the whole team and be that type of a coach. I like that a little more personally. So I do think that would be kind of something Rick Bisaccia would bring that would potentially help out something like the Colts. So yeah, I'm going to go with Aaron Glenn and then Rick Bisaccia as the who ends up with the Colts.
There's a long list of quality candidates and one not so quality one as well too. So they definitely there's a really good chance to get it right. We'll see what they decide to go with. Either way they do it, they're gonna have to bring in a young quarterback or something to stop this carousel of geriatrics, and we'll see what they got a lot to work with. We got an upcoming draft season where you have a top 5 pick, and you have a lot of. If you want to tear it down and restart, you got a lot of tradable assets. Looking at the guys like Kenny Moore, DeForest Buckner, and squad like that as well too. If you want to tear it down, you got something to work with. Like, yeah, there's a lot going on there as well too. So that's going to do it for the main event now as well too. A lot to keep an eye out with the coaching carousel, but that's going to now take us into Kelsey's favorite part of every show. That is Crunch Time, brought to you by our friends over at Outlier. Go to outlier.bet/high-low sports. Get yourself a free 7-day trial for outlier.bet. Basically, think of it like a database for everything you need to know for betting, from betting odds, trends, game trends, everything you need to know to bet smarter, not harder. Win yourself a little bit of cash as well. So we've been using it a little bit on the side, a little bit here and there. And if it wasn't for a few certain net players letting us down, like Jalen Hurts being 12 yards short of his rushing goal, we might have a lot more.
To be fair, I blame the 49ers for that more than anything. The trends were right, though. By the way, the trends were correct if the 49ers had kept up their end of the bargain.
If they would have just been there, basically. But we're actually going to talk a little bit of betting and a little bit on the hardwood. I want to get your first opinion on this one. I'm looking at the NBA MVP race right now, and this feels like one of the more wild MVP races because I look at there is 5 guys that have a very, very reasonable case for it right now as well too. You had Nikola Jokic averaging a triple-double as a center. Joel Embiid averaging north of 30 points a game as well too as a center and looking dominant. I think he's averaging 35 now. Coming off a fresh 40 and 18 piece he gave to Nikola Jokic. You got Luka Doncic, who, if you've seen Luka Doncic this year, you already know. Jason Tatum, the leading team in the East, putting up north of 30, and Giannis, the best player in the world. And then you still have John Morant with the Grizzlies until they went on this recent skid. Like, there's a lot of guys in this MVP race. This obviously isn't going to be our MVP prediction yet. We'll do that once we get closer to All-Star Week for our midseason awards. But I'm looking at the betting odds right now. Jokic is the favorite at -105, followed by Embiid at +200, Luka at +550, Jason Tatum at +1300, Giannis at +1600, which is surprising. Then John Morant at +3200. So looking at this, how are you feeling about this MVP race? Is it just me, or does this feel a lot more wide open than we're used to with these normal 2 to 3 horse races?
Yes and no. I've kind of always looked at this one like in the last few years. I felt there's a very I've never quantified it by putting the odds up to it like we're looking at it now at the betting odds, mostly because betting wasn't legal where we were at the time. So I hadn't really been quantifying it with the odds betting. And so what I've been doing is I've kind of kept it up with Nikola Jokic, Joel Embiid, and they're kind of own little corner over here, like centers battling it out, just kind of how they've been doing it the last 3 seasons, just because it's what they do. And then, usually it's been Steph Curry, Luka, Trae Young, LeBron, kind of in this Giannis in this category, where they're like, okay, they're my main, I really want you guys to win the MVP. But then you got these two just continuously doing what they're doing, dominating absolutely everybody. And at the end of the season, you kind of just have to combine them and then take what's left out of this hand, which is usually Steph Curry or LeBron, and combine it with either Luka, or not Luka, but Jokic and Embiid. But this year it doesn't kind of feel weird to kind of look at the odds this way because it shows exactly what I've been talking about for the last 3 years. Like, you've had the 2 centers just absolutely dominating everybody in the lead, back and forth with each other, and then you kind of have everybody else trailing behind. And it does feel weird in that case, just because it doesn't feel like a center-driven league, or like we've been talking about for so much. But if you think about it, the last 3 seasons, I can honestly make an argument for either Joel Embiid or it to be Nikola Jokic. Obviously, Jokic winning 2 out of the last 3. that it could have been either one to win the last three. Like you could have just taken your pick, and you would have been right. So yeah, it feels weird, but I'm still looking at this, and I don't know. Eventually somebody's going to have to be able to shut down what Jokic can do and what Embiid can do, right? That's my thought process. Like they're going to figure him out like Giannis. They can't just keep doing what they're doing, is my thought. So maybe at the end of that, I don't know. Maybe I'm just reaching for straws, but it feels weird. It really does feel weird to look at this like statistics and see kind of what you've always been feeling, that it was really just the centers just walking away with it, and the rest of us are just here to watch. And it may not be entertaining, maybe super boring for everybody else that's not a Nuggets or Sixers fan or not an Embiid or Jokic fan, but like for me, I think it's kind of cool.
What's crazy too is we're coming off back-to-back MVPs where Giannis won 2 in a row and Jokic won 2 in a row. Last year, we both kind of made the case as well too that Jokic, while deserving of the MVP, you could have very easily given it to Embiid last year. You can make a case, at least I made the case, I think he was just as deserving, if not more. This year, Jokic's stats are more impressive, but at the same time, everybody else is looking so damn impressive on top of it. I mean, Mitchell's not far out of that as well, too. He's like 4 spots down there, and he has 71 piece and has missed a week. You have LeBron at almost 40, averaging almost 40, it feels like. It feels like this year there's a lot of options. I'm curious to see who's going to pull away. I do have a feeling it's going to be the Giannis, Embiid, Jokic are going to be 3 of the final 4, almost guaranteed at this point as well, too. The big men continue to, and the question is, how do Luka and Jason Tatum and some of those guys go as far as staying healthy and continuing to cook? But right now, I'm looking at that Giannis plus 1,600, and that's interesting. You're never going to see odds like that next to a Giannis very, very often as well, too. He's normally in that plus 2 to 300-ish range as well. He had 50 points in 30 minutes just the other night and still sitting at plus 1,600. Like, the basketball is absolutely insane this year. The MVP race is very tantalizing to watch, and we'll make our predictions closer to All-Star break when we do like the midseason NBA awards. So we got a lot to look forward to there as well, too. And Kelsey, for crunch time, do you have anything you want to rant or rank or ramble about as well, too? Are you about to go throw some bets on some of these futures?
I'm actually looking at some of these futures. I'm liking the Luka odds. They're 550 there for Luka. Just put a nice little $5 on them and see what happens.
Absolutely. I mean, hey, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander plus 18,000. He's not going to win it, but he sure should be an all-star starter. That's for sure.
If I could get a show placement for him, then absolutely. Like if I could get a top 5 placement and that counted for him winning, I would take those odds. But yeah, no, unfortunately, it is really weird the way the NBA's MVP is going to end up shaking out yet again this year. Is like just at the end of the day, statistics matter, man, and nobody's putting them up better than Jokic and Embiid back to back.
Last final yes or no question. You got roughly 10 seconds. Do you think voter fatigue factors into the Jokic MVP vote?
Yes. If it comes down to Jokic and Embiid, yes.
I think unless Jokic gets you a 30-point triple-double average and they're the number 1 seed, I think it's going to go to somebody else at this point too. Because and at the same time, those playoff burnouts the last couple of years, I think they're going to be people's minds whether they admit it or not. They will never admit it, but you haven't won a playoff game in 2 years. It feels like it's been a rough couple of playoffs. So
series at least.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and then last year didn't win one, but I digress. We will see. It's going to be a very tantalizing race down the stretch, and that I can't wait to see who's going to get first team All NBA because it's going to be a crowded list. But that is going to do it for us here on this episode of the High Low Sports Podcast. We appreciate you all for joining us. We will see you all again next week for our Super Bowl week show as well. So we got a lot coming up, and we will talk more about that in the future. But until next time, we will talk to you all later.